What is up, everybody? Aaron the Dog back from his week-long break of MMA with the LFA 133 Breakdown show. Michael Stack and Jose Delano fighting for the featherweight LFA championship from Denver, Colorado. So from like the University of Denver, like auditorium or something. LFA will just fight anywhere, so you give them credit for that. But I think it's like the first sporting event in that venue, so it will be cool to see that. But a little bit of a home fight for Michael Stack, so we'll see if that plays a factor. Now we'll talk about that in a minute. But back, I believe it's been a minute. It's been a couple of cards since Lucky Locks has joined us. Recovered from COVID, recovered, from his little break here. How you doing, Lucky? Not wearing a hat today. I didn't get the text before. Usually we match up our headwear.
No hat today. I missed the last LFA card. Got hit with COVID. I was a little out of commission for the first 2 days, and then it lightened up a bit, but was not able to get my research done, and was definitely in no shape to be in front of a camera.
Yeah,
but happy to be back here. We got a good card, man. I think this is one of the better LFA cards of the year, actually. From Colorado, you can definitely tell because at least one guy in every single fight, I think, is fighting out of or from Colorado. We got a ton of Elevation Fight Team guys on this card, and I'm looking forward to it. This one should be really fun on Friday.
Yeah, and the glove touch in some sort of mood right now. I'm good. But we're just doing the main card as of now. We're not going to be doing prelims, I don't think ever, but not yet at least. But real quick on the prelims, we were talking before the card here. A prelim fight that I have already put a bet in on. It looks like the odds are shifting in that direction, so now he isn't even a plus money. He's minus 105. Riley Weissman. I like him to get a submission over Jacoby Jones. It's just one of these things. Even Jacoby Jones wins, like struggling against a guy like Paxton a few fights ago. And we had Paxton's dad in the comments actually after that breakdown warning us about that. He said he was going to show up, but still, I don't. A couple other Caleb Hall, another fight that we just saw Caleb Hall with Fury get absolutely flatlined and just not exactly high-level guys that Jacoby Jones was struggling with. And then, so Riley Weissman, minus 105. Not bad. Another dog I like, but I haven't taken quite yet is Jorvik Acevedo. I really liked his last fight. Had some really deep submissions in that. He's a plus 110 underdog. So a couple if you're a real degen and want to take a shot, but either way. And the main card, Josiah Reyes, that fight got taken off, unfortunately, or fortunately. Be very candid. It's hard to find tape on these guys from Mongolia. It's like almost as hard as saying their names, which you're going to find out later when you hear me try to attempt one of them. But so it's kind of a new trend with LFA that I find really interesting, actually. And I really like that they're doing. We saw with Orla Bay a few weeks ago how incredible he looked. It looked like I think he's going to be in the UFC by year's end, honestly. He looked like a monster. And so we don't really know with a lot of these. So, there might be a little bit of a opportunity on here with one of those fights. But we're going to get to all that here. Let me go ahead and grab a piece of paper to write down timestamps. Got it. And, let's go ahead and jump into it here. And then, if it goes to the judges, I want the minus 105 card. That's what Kelly's saying. Kelly co-signs on the Riley Weissman play. Right on. But we're going to start at 170. In this fight should be fun. I don't know how technical this fight's going to be. Charlevoix taking on Jeremiah Cartwright. Neither one of these guys I would describe as highly technical. They are going to, I think, meet in the middle, swing, and then I think most likely Ryan's going to kind of shoot for a takedown to the cage, maybe not get it, but pressure with it a little bit. And it really comes down to, can Ryan use his wrestling? We saw it with the Cervec Shields fight against Cartwright. Shields just went to the well with that. And then we saw in the last fight for Shields, didn't quite look as impressive with that wrestling. So definitely a spot where Ryan, who's 3-0, hasn't fought in over a year, very low levels of competition. And you can watch his tape. He swings and misses hard, almost where he's swinging and falling to the ground, missing. And he shoots for pretty much the same type of, link from the double leg to the single leg, pretty standard wrestling. I just think these guys are going to kind of meet and swing, which is, I think, the way Jeremiah Cartwright can win a fight. Ryan, I think, is going to use his wrestling. I'm not super blown away by Ryan so far over what I'm seeing. I know he has moved out to Elevation Fight Team. I think that we should see a much more improved, well-rounded technical version. So he most likely is showing the improvements. I think what you see is what you get with Jeremiah Curtright. Again, the last fight didn't really do anything to really change my mind with Curtright. I think Ryan Charlevoix wins this fight. I don't love the odds. And, if he just decides to stand and brawl, it wouldn't surprise me. Ryan seems like that kind of fighter so far. But, again, he's fighting at a better camp now. He's going to be the home fighter here, but should be a good one.
Yeah, so Ron Charlevoix is going to be one of many Elevation Fight Team fighters on this card. 6-0 as an amateur. He picked up 2 amateur belts, one at welterweight, one at middleweight as an amateur, and then 2019 turns pro. And his last 2 fights been on LFA. He's got a 3-0 pro record now, 2 wins via KO as a professional. And he's still pretty young, still hitting his stride. I think that this is probably going to be, well, not probably, I think this is going to be his toughest fight to date. He was supposed to fight both Jalen Fuller and Multibek Oralbai. Ended up fighting each other.
Seriously. 2 tough fights there.
Yeah, I think those would have been really tough matchups.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's kind of for the best that they ended up going against each other, and Charlevoix did not have to fight one of them. But I think he's a pretty good striker. I like the kicks at range. I think the combinations are pretty good. I like that he doesn't really throw very much singular stuff. He likes to follow stuff up, which is always good to see. And defensively in the grappling, the get-ups have been pretty decent. The defensive grappling's been decent, but like we said, he hasn't really fought anybody that's tested him that hard in any of that stuff. And he's going to be coming up against Jeremiah Curtright here, 8-6-1 as an amateur. Had that 0-2 start to his pro career. One of the losses coming to Ben, who we're going to talk about a little bit later, but kind of turned himself around a little bit. Got 4 straight wins, got to 4-2, and then obviously lost to Sarek Shields in his last fight, who is a pretty suffocating wrestling style. But decent striker, and the grappling side of things is kind of where he tends to get into trouble. I don't really see a ton of grappling, honestly, in this fight. I feel like we're going to get stand-up for most of the time. I'm going to go with Charlevoix. I think we're going to get stand-up, and I think that he's a little more polished on the feet. I think he can win the striking exchanges. Not really interested in betting this fight at the current number.
Yeah, minus 450 for Charlevoix. And he's coming off of, an extended layoff here. Obviously, we had those couple of fights. I mean, it is a good sign, though. That's 2, high-level fights to be matching up, especially Jalen Fuller at the time was still, a high-level name. We didn't quite know who Oralbai was that we do now. So I'm not going to as much be like, oh, wow, he was ready to fight Oralbai. I think now many less people are going to be willing to fight Oralbai, which is probably why he's going to move forward here. But, yeah, I mean, I just wasn't crazy about minus 450 either. And I do think if there's a side that's going to mix it up, it would be Ryan's side, just because I just don't see Curtright ever really doing much more than transitioning over to BKFC with 1 or 2 more losses in MMA, to be honest. So plus 300 on Curtright, not enough for me to be interested. I'm just leaving this fight alone for the most part. I'm going to count my money elsewhere. But yeah, that's the first fight on the main card. I think it is a really exciting way to open things up, and we're going to move on to the next fight here. This fight we won't have to talk about very long for a few reasons. First reason is it's not going to last very long, I don't think. Either one side or the other, I think someone's going down in the first round sometime. The other thing is that Trevor Wallace quite a fall from grace the odds-wise. I mean, what was he, like minus 800 or so last time against Bubba Grant?
Yeah, he was a huge favorite in that matchup.
I mean, it was like there wasn't any consideration. You're going against a 7-6, 38-year-old who hadn't fought in 3 years, who didn't come into the fight looking like he was in amazing shape at all, to put it lightly. And, yeah, Trevor Wallace had, 38 seconds of gas before he got popped with a combination, and all of a sudden you just saw him completely fold, get taken down, get beaten up on the ground, and get put away. Just straight up, Ben Tynan out of North Dakota State, very good wrestler there, beat a lot of legit Division I opponents there. He's had a very good amateur career, beating guys like Sullivan Cauley, who, yes, he's a light heavyweight, but large light heavyweight, Sean Moptis, others. And his first fight as a pro, just took his opponent down and beat him up, finished him really, really quickly. I think that Trevor Wallace has 0 takedown defense and less gas. And Tynan, a 234 heavyweight, maybe at some point goes to light heavyweight, who knows? But even at heavyweight, I don't mind him at this size being a little quicker, and he's definitely got power still and that wrestling, and he's going to ground and pound his opponent in round 1. The odds for Trevor Wallace have completely flipped. He's now a plus 600 underdog after being a minus nearly 1,000 favorite last fight against a 1-0 opponent.
Yeah, this is I'm pretty excited to see Tynan actually. So he's obviously training out of Elevation, like a lot of guys from Fort McMurray in Alberta. And he won the Northwest Fight Challenge Heavyweight Championship, the 6 feet under Heavyweight Championship, and the Tough Enough Heavyweight Championship, all as an amateur. 100% finish rate over his amateur career. And, if there was an amateur belt, this guy was going to get it. He turned pro in March and won his pro debut, like you mentioned, under a minute. He's got pretty decent power on the feet, 5 wins by knockout, but, most of them are coming from those ground and pound positions. He's a wrestler, former North Dakota State University wrestler for his junior and senior years. Before that, he was in junior college. He was an All-American there. And then back in high school in Canada, he was a national champion in freestyle wrestling. And he also did track and field and cross country. So you want to talk about Wallace's gas tank? Ben Tynan ain't gassing out after a minute. I will tell you that much, if it even lasts that long. So, 4 wins via submission on his resume as well. He's coming in here, 9 wins in a row or whatever it is. Probably all of his amateur fights aren't listed on Tapology, but that's what they have there. And coming up against Trevor Wallace, who was 3-2 as an amateur, and then turns pro in 2020, wins his first 4 fights really easily and picks up wins on good shows, LFA, CFFC, but just not very good competition. Then comes in against Bubba Grant, 7-6, 38 years old. Like you mentioned, huge favorite. And I don't even think he had a minute of gas in that fight. And Ben Tynan is just not going to gas out. And I think he already is the better fighter, in my opinion. So just not a good look last time out for Trevor Wallace. Obviously, Tynan is like minus 1,000 here. That's pretty much pointless to bet on. I think it's too steep for anyone to get involved in. But I think he's going to get it done here. And he looks really good from what I've seen.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of another fall from grace like this in the LFA odds that I've never seen this from a fighter where it was just we both picked Trevor Wallace against Bubba Grant pretty quickly, probably about as quick as this breakdown in all honesty.
Oh yeah.
It was just, and so it's just I can't think of another fighter where this has happened with LFA, where it was just he was on his way to fighting that Bubba guy after he beat the Brazilian guy or Waldo Costa. And then that happened with Waldo Costa. Those two were supposed to be who's the better, brute. And that looks so obvious after you look at the level of competition, the 3-2 amateur. Yeah. I mean, Tynan had what I like to call nearly a professional amateur career. These guys who have IMAF titles, the Tough Enough. When I see those types of titles and multiple fights like that, and you see some notable names, I rate those almost better than the 4 wins by Trevor Wallace, even if they were in the LFA. So, I mean, when your steepest competition is Bubba Grant, who's 7-6, 8-6 now, it's that says enough. So, yeah, we're both on Tynan here. Bellator, we definitely, exactly. Sebi is definitely that fall from grace. I remember that Sebi fight. That was painful to watch. I bet on Sebi for that fight. So we're on Tynan here. There's nothing really to do betting wise. Next fight of the night. This is a really good card. These last 3 fights are very close, in my opinion. This one particularly, I've felt close, but maybe you can kind of talk me out of. I liked what I saw at Trey Waters, honestly. But Benjamin Bennett, Trey Waters here at 170 should be a good fight here. Start both guys undefeated, 5-0 versus 3-0. Missouri Team Elevation versus Jacksonville, Florida. Trey Waters is a lengthy 170 or 6'5". He's listed at here, fighting on Jacksonville, Florida. His nickname is Deep Waters. Never seen that before, except for pretty much every fighter with the last name Waters in MMA. Only 27 years old, just getting into his prime. Hasn't fought since last November. He did get the win. He's got 7 straight wins going back to his amateur career. You see the submissions mostly. Not a high level of competition yet. Beat Elias Ramirez his last time out, a 1-0 opponent. Other opponents 1-8, 0-0, 1-5, and 7-5. So all with Combat Night Pro, all within the range of 2020 and 2021. He had 4 fights, 2 of them pretty close together, and then 2 more close together. So just hasn't faced the level of competition you want to see, even as an amateur. And that's kind of where my concern is coming into this fight. Benjamin Bennett, definitely going to be the much more stocky, traditional guy, Mr. Alaska. He's a scrapper, though. He definitely was really fun to watch in his last fight out. It's 14th straight win for him going back to his amateur career, 27 years old. He's definitely tenacious. He keeps a really good pace, good cardio. He's going to have to work his way into the range of his opponent. Definitely has faced the better level of competition as well, both amateur and as a pro. The last fight out against Elmar Umarov, really impressive performance. Jeremiah Curtright, he choked out back in 2020, but I was actually on him against Umarov. He was a pretty decent underdog as well. It was a really, really impressive performance. He looks to have it all together here. Just for me, I just think Waters doesn't have the level of competition and the balance and overall, balance in his game plan to really work Bennett here. I think Bennett knows what he needs to avoid, and that's probably going to be a guard pulling, tall grappler in Waters, and I just don't see that working against Bennett. Bennett probably beats him up here, but I wanted to see an angle for the underdog, so I'm curious your thoughts. I haven't bet this yet, but my pick, it would be Bennett probably by knockout.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to this fight, actually. Ben Bennett obviously is getting some good and well-deserved hype now, fighting at an elevation, hot off of that win over Elmar Umarov. I also was on him as a dog there. Umarov was a pretty hyped, guy in the LFA community for sure.
And he went on to win his next fight. Umarov did, so he definitely bounced back.
Yeah, so Bennett also has a win over Jeremiah Curtright, who we just talked about, and he was actually scheduled to fight Hamzat Chimaev in 2018, probably for the best that didn't come to fruition there. But he does have a win on Brave as well that he picked up in his pro debut, and his amateur resume is just massive, and it's also really impressive. So on Tapology, listed at 18-4, but last time in his last fight, in that Umarov fight on the broadcast, I believe Ron Crux said he has over 60 amateur fights, which is pretty insane. And just think about this. As an amateur, he's fought guys like Brendan Allen, Darian Weeks, both in the UFC. Alex Martinez, he's in the PFL. Will Starks, really good-looking guy in LFA besides his last fight.
Yes.
And, Ben Bennett was an IMMAF world champion. He's a solid striker, and he has good grappling as well. I was really impressed with the grappling success that he was able to have against Elmar Umarov, and I think he's a super legit prospect. Now, Trey Waters, 7-2 amateur, 5-0 as a pro, fought 4 times last year, super active, 6'5" welterweight, 80% finish rate. There's not much not to like about him, and I do think he's a really good fighter, but, man, that level of competition is just not the same as Ben Bennett, and this guy's good at distance. He's a good striker. He's long. He's rangy, as you might expect. And he's got 3 submissions as well. He can grapple. But, man, I don't know. I just think Ben Bennett is pretty legit, man. I've really, really liked what I've seen out of him. I mean, the competition level is just – not only is it not the same, it's just not close, in my opinion. So I got to go with Ben Bennett here. Now, -400, -450, that does not get me out of bed.
Yeah, -450 here.
Yeah, that doesn't get me out of bed in terms of betting, but I'm definitely looking forward to watching this one, and I'm going to side with Ben Bennett to get the win here.
So of the 2 -450s here, which do you feel is the? I know you're much more conservative with your betting. I just want to say that than I am. But I just still feel that this spot would be slightly tougher than the Ryan spot against Curtright, just based on the awkwardness of the opponent here. Because even with all those fights with Bennett, he's never fought anybody like Trey Waters. Which you can beat guys you never fought anybody like that. That's not what I'm saying here. And I also think Bennett is very physically strong, which I do think is going to be a huge difference here once he breaks that distance of Waters. So Yeah, but I would say, I guess Ryan would be my preferred of these two similar odds if you're looking to kind of add one. But I think these are both spots where it's just lined to where you can't really do much with these guys, unfortunately. So it's at least they're good fights, but it's tough to bet them here, is I guess my point. So, all right, we'll move on to the next fight here. But I think whoever wins this fight is definitely close to it. Particularly, I think if Bennett's impressive, he could be close to getting towards that LFA title shot. So I don't even know if they have a welterweight champion right now. It's so hard to keep track of those things, but
I can't remember.
Yeah, it's not as big of a deal, I guess, in LFA.
Is it one of the Bonfim brothers?
Is it the Bonfim bros? Okay, yeah, I would love to watch.
It was Carlos Leal, right? And then
it was Carlos Leal. Then he moved up. So yeah, I think it's one of the Bonfim brothers. But I'd watch Bonfim against Bennett. But next fight here, another 170 fight. I guess we don't know yet because. But I think these two fights could have been flipped, to be honest. But that's just my opinion. They do like Harris Tolzik, though, over at LFA. He's been an LFA regular, the Bosnian silverback. He's known as welterweight, taking on the Lion King here, Bahatbolati, the Chinese fighter, 24 years old out of China Top Team, Factory X Muay Thai. For Harris here, 5'11" against 5'9". Yeah, I think this is a fight where we know from time to time the Mongolian fighters, the Chinese fighters, which LFA has really become more invested in, and I give them quite a bit of credit. That's definitely not something that originally they were doing a lot of, but we saw with Orlbai Lulu how that paid off, and there's been others for sure. So I do like that originally they're kind of more LFA was more like Brazil and kind of Midwest regionals, and they've kind of adjusted a little bit here. So the problem with the Lion King, definitely not the nickname. Love the nickname. It's pretty hard to find tape on him. And by hard to find tape, I didn't find any tape other than a few highlights on Twitter and a few other like Chinese websites that I couldn't read anything from. So it's a little more of looking at, kind of what we have, which is that he's out of Fight King Globe Belt contest and Bullet Fly FC. Those are where he's fought. Not familiar with those. Has finished his first 4 opponents, then started going to a couple of decisions, got a corner stoppage in his last fight in July. Mostly a striker from the highlights I was able to find. Throws good combinations, good boxing. Looks to be a good size. He also trains with Li Jingliang. I know he's kind of been all over the place with him. I'll let you kind of go more into that too. When you kind of discuss this. And so I'm more looking at kind of the credentials and what I've been able to see of him, which is limited amount. But I have seen a lot of Harris Tolzik. And what I've seen out of Harris, I haven't been super blown away by. I said this kind of a little bit before, but I'll say it now. He seems to over rely on the grappling at points when he should be striking, and over rely on the striking at points when he should be grappling. And what it leads to is a lot of closer decisions than they should be. He is 4-0 though. He's going back to his amateur 12 straight wins. He's only 26 years old. To me, I don't think he looks like a huge 170er, but that's just my opinion on it. And Brock Smith just absolutely gassed in that second round, but he was giving him an absolute fight in that first round before throwing the Chris Weidman spinning kick and getting his back taken and giving up by tapping the mat with that rear naked choke, which I don't know. Anytime I see a mat tap instead of an arm tap, I think that's a kind of a little bit of a revealing on the level of grappler you are. And Brock Smith, 33 years old in that fight, was looking good till he wasn't. Otherwise, just wins over 2 0 guys. And 3-0 Luis Inguinez. Went back and watched that fight. Wasn't super impressed with it either. Quick rear naked choke in the Gabriel Gideon fight. So, for me, I think that I'm going to take a shot on the Chinese dog here. It is a pretty blind shot, but I don't trust Harris as a -350 favorite here against a pretty high level training opponent, at least, of Li Jingliang, training with good levels of competition as well, going kind of syndicate in other places. But Yeah, what are your thoughts kind of on Harrison on my somewhat blind guess, but also somewhat informed pick with Bahate?
Yeah, so without giving away too much too quick, I will say that we see this fight very, very similarly. All the points that you're touching on are things that I was thinking of as well. And if you
Yeah.
go watch my video on this, you'll see me say pretty much the same things. So Tulunzik, training at Factory X. Bachabalati is training with good guys too, but so's Tulunzik. Factory X, that's a very good gym, good fighters there, and he is really focused right now. I just watched one of his interviews saying that he wants to finish this fight, and he wants to try to get a shot in Contender Series or try to fight for the title in LFA. I think those are both very reasonable and attainable goals for him, and he says there's nothing else on his mind at the moment. So you do like to hear that. I think he is a good striker at range. He is a little bit loose, but I like the leg kicks. I like just the kicking game in general, and I like that he looks for the combinations. I think he's got decent power. Grappling wise, good wrestlers are able to get this guy down. We saw it in his last fight. His get-ups are decent. His defensive grappling is decent. And, grappling in general is pretty good. He did win his last 2 fights by submission. But guys that have just a better wrestling base, a better overall MMA grappling game, I think are going to be able to keep him down and cause him problems. Like I've never been super, super high on this guy. Bachabalati, the Lion King, he is Kyrgyz Chinese. I believe he's representing both countries. Listed as Chinese on Tapology, but does have Kyrgyzstan in his Instagram bio and has some posts in that language as well. But does a lot of his training and is competing in China. He's a main training partner of Legion Liang, and I believe he's been down at Sanford MMA with him a little bit, definitely training with him a lot leading up to that Hamza Chimaev fight for Legion Liang. So he's 6-1 on Tapology. He's 3-0 on Sherdog. Either way, undefeated. He's got a lot of finishes as well. And yeah, to be completely honest, like you, I could not find a single full fight video for him anywhere. I tried copy pasting the Chinese characters from Tapology in.
Yeah, we learned. Yeah, we tried that. Sorry.
Yeah, we tried all the usual tricks. Couldn't get it. So the only tape that I was able to see was a short clip on his Instagram of him getting a knockout. And the striking was a little choppy. It was a little bit kind of wild, but it's really hard to judge a guy off such a short clip. And I haven't seen him grapple, but I'm going to assume that he has some wrestling, right? Because these Kyrgyz fighters tend to have that heavy wrestling style like we saw with Orobai. There is a picture of him on Instagram wearing a shirt that says, "I wrestle." So I'm going to take him at his word. I'm just going to assume that he wrestles. So the pick that I'm going to make here is pretty much just more based on the line. I think it's going to be really difficult for Tulunzik to cover minus 325 here, just in general. And like I said, I essentially found no tape. So on Bachabalati, but undefeated, training with the UFC fighter, getting some time at Sanford, presumably being a wrestler. I think just that stuff alone makes this fight a lot closer than, the minus 325 line. So are we making a ton of assumptions here? Absolutely. I'm not coming out here and saying you need to bet on Bachabalati here. I'm definitely going to caution everybody against laying this kind of chalk on Tulunzik. I've never bet against Tulunzik or picked against him before, but I don't really think he's a super amazing prospect, and I'm going to side with the plus 250 dog in Bachabalati here in the co-main event.
Yeah, we're on the same page for I think this entire card, to be honest. And that has happened in the past. Doesn't always happen, but in the past when that's happened, I can say pretty successful with that. So not saying it's going to be a perfect card, but I do think that, more often than not, when we're on the same page for a card, we end up cashing out pretty well with LFA. So, I agree here. And I've never picked against Harris either. I do think that this is a line play here. And let's take a shot. Harris is a minus 350 favorite now, plus 250 on Bahate Bole. So I'll learn how to say his name completely by the next card, hopefully. But we'll see. You know how it is. Main event time, end of a very good LFA, the best LFA of the year. I do agree with you on that one. Michael Stack, the hometown guy here, Trials MMA, fighting against Jose Delano, the Brazilian, the 26-year-old Brazilian here. Could have been featherweight champion, but wasn't able to make the weight on very short notice, even though he did have a fight he was getting ready for. So, it's just one of those things either way. Really great performance in his last one against the Brazilian Conor McGregor. Villarino, man, that would have been a nice spot to hit. I just Did not. I thought Villarino had an advantage there against Delano on short notice there. I really thought that Villarino was going to end up being able to establish the distance, establish where the fight took place. None of that happened. Delano put on an outstanding performance. Lost a couple fights early on in his career, and he's gone on a little bit of a run, which is honestly what I like seeing out of my MMA fighters. I like seeing the losses early, and you see with Jack Della. Jack Della got, I believe, knocked out in both of his first 2 fights, and now he's doing work about to fight Imiev in a really good fight. By the way, I love Jack Della in that spot. But back to this fight with Delano. I like that he's seemed to learn, was kind of originally known more for his grappling and jiu-jitsu, and it's put together to stand up pretty well. I mean, he was putting forward pressure, volume, staying in Villarino's face, really broke him. That second round nearly finished him. The first round was really impressive too. And I can guarantee one thing with this fight: you're going to have both guys moving forward, and whoever's able to be on the front foot and make the other guy fight off his back foot and fight in the position they want is going to win this fight, because that's how Michael Stack pretty much fights too. I'll be honest right away. I've been waiting for a chance to fade Michael Stack for quite a while now. I'm not super impressed by him. I think he's very tough fighter. I think he's gritty. I think he, pushes the pace, definitely takes advantage of fighting at elevation. He's dedicated and everything like that. But just overall, his transitions between the striking and grappling, he's never really built that game for me. And I think that he's kind of gotten away in a couple fights with, some not so great performances ending up in some wins. One thing I will say is that Delano is going to be the shorter guy here, which he was shorter in his last fight, obviously a different case. I think Michael Stack is a much more physically big guy. I do think that I'll be interested to see how Jose Delano makes the weight too. That's a worry of mine, obviously, with missing weight in his last fight. And he's a stocky 145er, and I do think, Stack fighting out of Denver, he's going to have the crowd behind him. He's going to have the cardio too. This should be an interesting one, but I haven't seen that kind of raise in the game of Michael Stack. The Jordan Mappa fight was fine, but losing to Kai Kamaka kind of let me know what I need to know here. I think that Jose Delano is going to mix it up here. Jose Delano is kind of reminding me of the Carlos Leal kind of rise. So I'm curious to see if he can kind of match it up with back-to-back performances here. But I see if Delano gets a finish, a KO, he's going to be on the Contender Series, I think, very quickly. I do think he's legitimate, and he showed me a lot in that last fight. I think he's really improving quickly. I think what you see is what you get with Michael Stack, and I just don't see it kind of working here. I'm hugely on Jose Delano from a betting perspective. I've already bet him. I really like this line at -130. I think that, or I don't really like it. I'll take it. I was hoping to get Michael Stack as a hometown guy, as a heavy favorite, as a familiar guy, but seems the smart money is on Delano here, and I'll take it so at -135. I don't think it's particularly close. I think Delano wins this one going away. So by decision, most likely, but I could see a finish also for Delano. I think he's legit and he can finish it either way. So I'm all aboard on Delano. I really saw what I needed to in that last fight. I get Villarino as a little bit of a false goods, wolf tickets. I think Dana White knew what he was doing. With regards to not signing Villarino off that kind of kick of Kanan. And so give me the 130 favorite, Jose Delano here. I think that he establishes the center of the cage and pushes Michael Stack. I don't think Michael Stack is good fighting off of his back foot either at all. So I think Delano's the quicker of the two opponents also.
Yeah, this should be a great main event. Michael Stack, like you mentioned, this is the hometown guy here. Crowd definitely going to be behind him, training at a Trials MMA and Fitness in Colorado, and also spend some time at, yep, you probably guessed it, Elevation Fight Team. So he's on a 3-fight win streak. He's 4-1 in LFA with that one loss to Kai Kamaka. As always, it's saying he's 6 feet on Tapology. You'll all see on Friday night he is 5'10" once they put up the tail of the tape. But he is still a very big 145. He's very thick, very built. Definitely will be probably the more physically imposing guy of these two fighters. And 2 fights ago, that fight against Jackson Fieldho, he looked probably the worst that I've seen him look. I mean, that decision, he did win it. It was unanimous, but man, it was pretty sweaty, and it seemed kind of off. I remember talking to you on Twitter about that one as it was going on, stressing. So we followed that up, though, with a very solid performance over Kyle Gregorio, who's also a really big featherweight and also missed weight pretty badly for that fight. It was a hard-fought win for Stack, and Gregorio's a guy with tremendous jiu-jitsu and really big guy. So to be able to see him have that success, both getting him down and staying safe on the ground, that was pretty good. The striking, though, for Michael Stack is kind of where he runs into trouble. You know, when he gets stuck on the feet, like he did a little bit against Jackson Fieldho, that's kind of when he gets into trouble and faces some adversity. You know, the game plan is obviously get on the hips and get the wrestling going. And when it works really well. When it doesn't work, it gets sweaty quickly. So Delano is still a young guy right now at 25. He will be at a bit of a size disadvantage against Stack, but he's also pretty thick, just a little bit shorter. I don't know if he's as long either, but he just beat Jonas Billerino, who, you know, granted is not as built of a guy as Michael Stack is, but he is taller than him and he is longer than him. Delano only has 2 losses in his pro career, 2014, 2015. Other than that, it's been all green. Coming in this fight on 9 straight wins. Bit of kind of lower level competition, but his last 2 fights have been good. Won the Shuto featherweight belt over Luciano Benicio, and pretty much no one thought he was going to win that fight. Then, you know, he's scheduled to fight Braga on LFA, but Rafael Barbosa falls out of the main event. He gets bumped up to the title fight. Pretty much no one thought he was going to win that one either, and he pulls it off once again. So, like you said, he would be the featherweight champ in LFA right now if he had made weight for that fight, which unfortunately he didn't. He's a good striker, kind of putting together that aspect of his game. He's aggressive. He comes forward. Good work both to the body and head. I honestly thought he looked really good against Jonas Billerino. You know, he kind of bossed him around for the vast majority of that fight. And good sub game too. You know, he's slick on the mat. Stack obviously has dealt with that before and showed that he's able to stay safe on the ground from guys that are bigger than Delano is. But, you know, Delano, I think, is going to be the much better striker here. And I think that he's going to be able to keep this fight on the feet for the majority of the 25 minutes. Could he, you know, lose 2 rounds, get grappled for 2 rounds? Yeah, definitely. But I just don't know if Stack's going to be able to hold him down for 3 of the 5 here. And I see Delano just winning the vast majority of the minutes that are going to be spent on the feet in this fight. You know, if Michael Stack's struggling a little bit against Jackson Fieldho standing, I think this matchup is going to be way more difficult than that. So I'm going to agree with you. I like Jose Delano in this fight.
Yeah. Now, I knew before talking to you about this fight that we were going to be on the same page with this fight. And that would be 5 for 5 on the day of agreements here, for better or worse. I don't always like agreeing completely with my co-hosts, but on fight cards like this with LFA, I'm always okay with it, honestly, especially after talking with you about these. So, yeah, we've got basically we've got we like all the favorites except Harris, Chudnik, or Toldzik. We're going to take the underdog in Bahatapole there. Otherwise, we got the 4 favorites with that underdog there, so you can do the full card parlay and get a decent payout there. But of the favorites, I do like Delano. What is Delano fighting at? Missed weight for Bill. It's at 145. It's a featherweight champ title fight, Kelly. But yeah, I like Delano particularly on this card. Delano, obviously the heavyweight fight you can't do anything with. And then, yeah, I would say that, you know, the other fights are kind of a little bit tricky. So do it your own kind of risk. I would say Ryan and Delano would be my 2-piece that I would suggest for this card, though, if you were looking for kind of a more than a double, but more than a double, I don't see, you know, kind of the route here. Go ahead and take a shot on the underdog at plus 250. And yeah, hopefully Delano makes weight. Again, he was switching opponents on short notice, and I think I more rate the fact that he was willing to take on a pretty hyped up opponent in Billerino on short notice with no time to prepare and had that kind of game plan. It just shows good fighter instincts here, which I rate much higher than Michael Stack. So again, I think a minus 130 price tag is good, you know, so I think jump on it. So that's going to do it for the breakdown here. Always great to have you back, Lucky. Glad you're doing better. And I always feel better about getting my picks. Your video is up yet, or will it be up later in the week?
Yeah, just uploaded it just before we hopped on.
Right on. So yeah, definitely check that out. Broken record if you've been here before, but I always listen to those as I'm making my final picks. It's much more succinct and contains a lot more kind of that nitty gritty information that sometimes I gloss over when I'm talking about more of my own views on the fighters. So appreciate you always, Lucky. We'll be back for the next LFA, whenever that is. Whenever PFL comes back, we'll be back. I don't know when the hell that. I don't know if it's like next week or on Tuesday or next Wednesday at 6 a.m. When PFL's back, we'll be back for that too, hopefully. But PFL is just doing its own thing right now. Like I don't understand that organization. And then UFC Breakdown with Lewis, who returns to the breakdown. Visceral, I just beat you for that comment. UFC Breakdown in about a little over an hour at 3 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Greenwich Means Times over in England. We're going to be breaking down those 14 fights headlined by Volkov and Rosenstruck. So should be some good fights on that. Put Damon Jackson in all your parlays this weekend also because he is not losing to Dan Arguda. So for Lucky Locks and Aaron the Dog, we're out till next time. Keep taking care of each other, everybody. Thanks. Peace.